Welcome back to Bay Area Focus. One of the oldest rape crisis centers in California, Community Violence Solutions, offers services for survivors of all ages and backgrounds. Andres Montilliano and Debbie McCann from CVS join me now. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
All right, so tell me about the center and the focus of it.
Certainly. Community Violence Solutions has been around for about 40 years. We started in West Contra Costa County as the Rape Crisis Center. And over the years, we've expanded our service area and also the services that we provide. And our mission is in partnership with the community to end sexual violence and family violence through prevention services, crisis intervention, and treatment for victims.
So some counseling?
Some counseling, and one of our programs, the Rape Crisis Center, we offer 24/7 crisis hotline. So at any time, day, night, doesn't matter, if there is a victim of sexual assault, they can call our hotline and there'll be a trained intervention counselor on the other end of the line, and we can help them with whatever it is that they're facing in that moment. It could be a memory from 20 years ago, or it could be that they're a victim of sexual assault that just happened. And in that case, one of our victim advocates could meet them at the hospital and accompany them for a medical exam.
It's such a touchy subject, and I'm sure it would be hard for people to come forward to ask for the help. How do you make them feel comfortable enough to come forward?
You're absolutely right. It is a very, very sensitive subject. It's very scary and personal. But our victim advocates are very well trained. We recognize what a victim is going through in the moment, and are just make ourselves available, and we're there for them, only for them. And what's interesting about victim advocates as well is that any information that's shared from a victim to a victim advocate is 100% confidential. So we will always encourage whatever's in the best interest of the victim, if it's, working with law enforcement. But they don't have to fear, they don't have to worry that what they share with us is going to get sort of broadcast throughout.
Debbie, you have the Children's Interview Center at the center. What is that?
The Children's Interview Center is the Child Advocacy Center for Contra Costa County, nationally accredited. We've been accredited for about 10 years now. And we work with a multidisciplinary team, which is prosecutors and law enforcement and social workers and all the folks who are involved in sex abuse investigations, coordinating those investigations. And we provide forensic interviews, which are the interviews with child victims and witnesses that are taped on behalf of law enforcement to help those investigations.
What are some of the myths about sexual abuse?
Well, let's see. Some of the myths about sexual abuse are that people are abusers because they were abused themselves or molested themselves, and while that is sometimes true, and there is slightly more risk of offending behavior, I guess, but really most offenders were not victims. It's sort of like you can say that most perpetrators of sexual violence are men, but that doesn't mean that most men are perpetrators, right? So.
Right.
So really, there's a lot more going on. It's a lot more complicated than just, if you are a victim, then you'll become an offender.
Sure. What can parents do? What do we need to know, and how we can protect our children?
Well, the real answer is you can't really prevent sexual abuse from happening, but there are some things you can do to be aware. I mean, you can, first of all, really be aware of what you're up against. A lot of people sort of give their kids a lot of information about stranger danger and really focus on that. And the reality is that is not where the danger lies. And the vast majority, 97% of kids that come to the CIC were molested by someone that they know. In most cases, it's a family member. I mean, in the kids who are vulnerable to strangers are mostly teens, not little kids. And so just to be aware of that. And give your kid information, developmentally appropriate information, and make sure they understand you, what you're saying. Because I talked to a little girl once who kept talking about strangers, these two strangers who had assaulted her, and her mom said, well, I told her about strangers, and she should know about strangers. And wasn't making much sense, so I finally asked her, what is a stranger? Who are strangers? And she said, men with mustaches. Oh. So she didn't even know what the word meant, and it was two men with mustaches actually who had assaulted her, but they were not strangers to her. So make sure that they understand what you're telling them. And as important as talking to them is listening to them, because we'll ask children at the CIC, did you tell anybody? And most kids don't tell, but so often kids will say, well, I tried to tell. I tried to tell so-and-so and they didn't believe them or they didn't understand them. And so really listen to your kids if they're expressing some discomfort about a person or a situation or going with somebody, or they suddenly have a lot of knowledge of
It just sounds like open communication is very important when you're talking to your children. Let's talk about human trafficking. I mean, it is real in our communities.
It is.
It is real. It's happening right here in our backyard. One of the biggest myths is that it happens overseas. It doesn't happen here, but it is right here happening under our noses. And you know, we work with both sex trafficking and labor trafficking victims. And the majority of the sex trafficking victims that we work with are minors. They're children, and the average age of entry into human trafficking now is 12 years old, and that number is actually getting younger and younger.
That's heartbreaking to hear.
It is heartbreaking.
When we started a few years ago, this program, the average age nationally was 14, and now it's 12.
Wow. All right. Well, Andres and Debbie, thank you so much for all of your work and then for coming on the show and letting us know all about it. And for more information on Community Violence Solutions services, log on to cvsolutions.org. Again, that's cvsolutions.org. Coming up, the inside scoop on CAMFest 2015. We'll be right back.